curry with aloo in it, potato in it, kachalu in it. So this is how Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would like, especially gourds and curry. So he would, as we've understood one of the hadiths, he would look for it. And Anas bin Malik radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he mentions that I figured it out that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam loves it, so I was looking for it, and then I was giving it to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Anyhow, today inshallah we are going to continue with the same chapter, and we're going to cover the hadith number 164. So we're going to recite the hadith for the transmission purposes, and then we're going to inshallah translate, and whatever we need to cover, we cover inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه قال حدثنا الحسن بن محمد الزعفراني قال حدثنا حجاج بن محمد قال ابن جريج أخبرني محمد بن يوسف أن عطاء بن يسار أخبره أن أم سلمة أخبرته أنها قربت إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم جنبا مشويا فأكل منه ثم قام إلى الصلاة وما توضأ. So this hadith is narrated by Ata ibn Yasar, and he relates from Salama. And everyone knows who Salama was, right? Does anyone know who Salama was? Raise your hand if you know Salama. Yes. The wife of the Prophet, one of the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, al-Mu'mineen, Salama radiyallahu ta'ala anha. She informed him. So basically, as you see Anas bin Malik, he always talks about Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the appearance at the previous chapter we've talked about. And similarly, these Ummahatul Mu'mineen, they would also describe. Now look, she is explaining what Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would eat. Why? These Sahaba, the companions, they would come to these Ummahatul Mu'mineen, and they were eager to know what Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ate and consumed and what he loved, just to emulate Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she is informing them about it. So Salama informed him that she presented the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam with a jamban mashwiyan, with a roasted side portion of meat. Basically, it was kind of a barbecue. Or you can say steaks, okay? So barbecued, roasted meat, of which he ate. And afterward, he stood up and offered salah and did not perform wudu. So, first of all, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, this is something new that we learn, that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam consumed, and that is roasted meat, barbecued meat. And Nabi sallallahu, and there's another hadith which Prophet sallallahu, which indicates that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would love shoulder, right? And barbecue, mashwiya. Now, Abu Sam'an, he's a scholar, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that I've heard ulama say that the most preferred food to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was meat. In fact, there is a hadith of the Prophet, even though the chain is weak, but still we can use it for the virtues and to understand that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Al-lahmu sayyidu at-ta'am li ahli ad-dunya wal akhirah," which means meat is the king of the food. Meat is the leader of the foods in the dunya and in the akhirah. Meaning in Jannah we're going to have meat as well. So from this we understand meat is something that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam loved. And however, we gotta understand only when it was available. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam never craved for it like we do, right? No, I used to see barbecue. No, not like that. Whenever it was available, he liked it, right? So this is another thing that we need to understand. Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi says that eating meat increases your intellect, increases your aql. This is one of the benefits of eating meat, but with moderation. Number two, Ali radiallahu ta'ala who says that it's good for your color, it's good for your behavior as well. Now, hukama and atibba and the doctors, they say that, for example, if someone does not eat meat for 40 days, you're going to see change in their behavior. Their behavior will change. And the effect you will see on their face. Perhaps because of the lack of energy, wallahu a'lam. But nowadays it's different. You can't put these things into perspective because nowadays we have different vitamins. And these different additional, bars and this and that, which covers these much calories and these much. So now it's different. But we're talking about these pure, and all of this that we have today is processed food, right? Which is not good for our health. But if you look at each and every single thing that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to consume, pure. Zaytun, meat, raw, like barbecued meat, asal, zaytun, gourd, everything is pure. And that is called dieting, right? Looking what you're eating. Always looking after your health. And this is our responsibility as a Muslim, because this life of ours, this health, this is amana from Allah Azza wa Jalla. This is trust that Allah has given us and entrusted us with, so we have to take care of it. Anyhow, ثم قام إلى الصلاة وما توضأ. Then she says that after that he stood up and offered salah and did not perform wudu. The reason why it's mentioned here, because there is another hadith which talks about that anything which is cooked on fire, right, then you have to make wudu. Okay, or anything greasy that you eat, you have to make wudu. There's a hadith, explicit hadith. But at the same time, ulama mentions perhaps that hadith is either abrogated, mansukh, or initially that hadith didn't even mean that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam made ritualistic wudu that we make for salah, but rather wudu has two meanings: minor wudu and major wudu. Major wudu is ritualistic wudu, just like we make for salah. Minor wudu is washing hands and rinsing our mouth. So in that case, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not even rinse his mouth. Or it could mean he did not even make wudu, the salah wudu, ritualistic wudu. This indicates that it is not mandatory that if you eat something which was cooked on fire, that it necessarily breaks your wudu. Of course, it is better to wash your hands and rinse your mouth if you ate something greasy. Is it clear? Understand? Inshallah. Now, hadith number 165. وبه قال حدثنا قتيبة قال حدثنا ابن لهيع عن سليمان بن زياد عن عبد الله بن الحارث قال أكلنا مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم شواء في المسجد. Now this hadith is narrated by Abdullah ibn Harith. He says that we ate some grilled meat, again shiwa'an, roasted, barbecue, grilled meat, with Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but look, while we were in the masjid. So now this hadith indicates and teaches us that it is okay and permissible to eat in the masjid. However, ulama explains that you should have intention of i'tikaf. Mu'takif can eat in the masjid. Now there are types of i'tikaf. One i'tikaf is sunnah i'tikaf, one i'tikaf is wajib i'tikaf, one i'tikaf is nafli and voluntary i'tikaf. And voluntary i'tikaf is easy. You enter the masjid, you just make intention, Ya Allah, I'm making i'tikaf. And now you are in the state of i'tikaf. You will be rewarded as a mu'takif as long as you stay in the masjid. How easy that is. It's just the intention. And just because of slight intention and slight change in your intention, now every moment of yours that you're spending in the masjid, you're mu'takif. This is why ulama mentions that as Muslims, as nation of Ummah Muhammadiyah, we haven't lost much because of our bad intentions, but we have lost a lot of things because we do a lot of things without intentions. So every action that we do, we always check our intention. Why am I doing it? And what is the way and path of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Because, as you know, there are three prerequisites before any action. Number one, you have to have iman. Number two, you have to have ikhlas, sincerity. And number three, you have to have ittiba, which is following Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You only follow the sunnah, and your action will be accepted in the court of Allah Azza wa Jalla. If any one of them is missing, then that will become haba'an manthura. It will not count in the court of Allah, in your mizan, in your scale, it will not count. So that's one of the things. However, one thing we must understand, that even if you are mu'takif, you're not allowed to pollute the masjid. Like, okay, spilling curry here, leaving the bread there, and you know, especially you come in the month of Ramadan, it's all mess. The mu'takifin, they're leaving here, some food here, there. No, it's our responsibility to take care of the masjid as a mu'takifin, even though we're allowed. But the right of the masjid is that we take care of the masjid, inshallah. Now, there's also a continuation of this hadith, which is not mentioned here, but there's another hadith that ثم قام فصلى وصلينا معه ولم نزد على أن مسحنا أيدينا بالحصباء, which means that then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood up, like we were eating with Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the masjid, and then he stood up and then he led the salah and we prayed with Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَلَمْ نَزِدْ عَلَىٰ أَنْ مَسَحْنَا أَيْدِينَا بِالْحَصْبَاءِ. And only thing that he did, that he wiped his hand on the pebbles, on the floor. How simple, subhanAllah. Because those days, they would not have these handkerchiefs and you know, all these toliyas and this and that, or rumals. So that was easy. And that was masjid. But by the way, not the masjid that we have, not the carpets. Because there's an incident that happened, that there was a young guy, mashallah, got into Islam, and you know, once you newly come to the masajid and learn about the deen of Allah, you have that, mashallah, azam, you know, you want to be following the sunnah. So he heard a hadith that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam also prayed salah in his shoes. Prayed salah in his shoes. So one day he came in the masjid with shoes on. So someone told him, what are you doing? So he said, don't ever tell me. You don't know that this is sunnah? Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would come to the masjid with the shoes on, and he prayed, even prayed shoes on. Everyone, subhanAllah. Because that time, during Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, initially, they would not have these carpets. It was only dust and pebbles. There wasn't any roof on top. So even because of the heat, because of the pebbles, sometimes they had to pray while shoes on. But what kind of shoes Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had? We covered the shoes of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Simple leather and a couple of straps on top. Clean and pure. But nowadays we have those boots, right? We don't know where we're stepping. And sometimes you see in the janazah, people are praying in the shoes. However, it's okay if it is inconvenient for you. But if you are certain that they are pure, there is no gandhi, there is no khabatha, there is no impurity, that's when you are allowed. Because look, the adab is, the manners are that you are standing before Allah Azza wa Jalla. Look, Musa alayhi salam, when he's going to Mount of Tur, what does Allah command? The first command, فَخْلَعْ عَلَيْكَ إِنَّكَ بِالْوَادِ الْمُقَدَّسِ طُوَى. Take off your shoes, O Musa alayhi salam, because you are in a blessed valley, in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? Mount of Tur. So we are in the masjid, in the court of Allah, in the house of Allah Azza wa Jal, standing before Allah, shoes on, that's against the adab. We're not talking about the permissibility, jaiz or najaiz. That's another subject. Of course, it is jaiz only when it is inconvenient for you. You're in jihad, you're whatever, right? You're going to pray janaz or praying outside, it's raining, etc. You have those big shoes and boots on, it's inconvenient for you to take them off. If you are certain that they are pure, that's okay. But remember who you're standing before, right? Allah Azza wa Jalla. And the other is you take off the shoes. This is one thing that we understand from this hadith, inshallah rahman. Now, hadith number 166, inshallah rahman. وبه قال حدثنا محمود بن غيلان قال حدثنا وكيع قال حدثنا مسعر عن أبي صخر جامع بن شداد عن المغيرة بن عبد الله عن المغيرة بن شعبة قال ضفت مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ذات ليلة فأتي بجنب مشوي ثم أخذ الشفرة فجعل يحز فحزني بها منه قال فجاء بلال يؤذنه بالصلاة فألقى الشفرة فقال ما له تربت يداه قال وكان شاربه قد وفى فقال له أقصه لك على سواك أو قصه على سواك. Now this hadith is narrated by Mughira ibn Shu'bah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He says that I was with the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam one night as a guest. So he was basically the guest of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ulama differ that whose house was this. So ulama, they talk about that whose house was this. Number one of the opinion is Duba'a bint Zubair bin Abdul Muttalib. Duba'a was the cousin sister of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Who was Duba'a? Cousin sister of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the second opinion of ulama is that this was the house of Maymuna. Who knows who's Maymuna? Yes. One of the wives of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Another amongst the Ummahatul Mu'mineen, Maymuna radiyallahu ta'ala. Now, a roasted side of meat was presented to him, and he took a large knife and began to slice it. Now, ثُمَّ أَخَذَ الشَّفْرَ. He took a knife, he cut the meat, the piece of meat for me. Numbers of things are understood from this hadith. Now, number one thing that we understand from this hadith is, being a khadim and being at service, you don't have to be always lower in rank and status. Like, as students, they serve their teacher because teacher, his rank is high. We serve our parents because their rank is high. But from this, we understand Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is serving and doing khidmah of his guest. So, if we are parents, if we are teachers, so it is our responsibility and job and adab and sunnah to serve our students, to serve our children, to serve younger ones, and the people who are lower in rank than us. This is one of the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And inshallah, we take this with us today, inshallah. This one thing, inshallah, if we could take it back, inshallah, rahman, it will improve us a lot. Now, there is another hadith in Bukhari and Muslim that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam cut the meat from the shoulder of the goat, and he was eating it, and then the adhan went off. Who was the muadhin, of course? Bilal radiallahu ta'ala. Bilal, he was one of the muadhin of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Masjid al-Nabawi. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam dropped the meat and dropped the knife, and he went and prayed and didn't make wudu. That hadith also talks about that he didn't make wudu. There's another hadith that Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she mentions, لا تقطع اللحم بالسكين. Now, this hadith teaches us and indicates that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used a knife. The hadith of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, that indicates that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions, do not use the knife. Why? Because he said, فَإِنَّهُ مِنْ صَنِيعِ الْأَعَاجِمِ. Because that's the way of non-Arabs. Non-Arabs do that. So apparently there's a contradiction. Apparent contradiction. Right? So the answer to it is either, or it depends upon the situation. If meat is such that you cannot tear it apart, you cannot take the bite from it with your hands, then you are allowed to use the knife. But the custom and the tradition that we live in today, even tender meat, you have these knives and the forks and everything. That's against Islam. Ulama, they condemn that. They condemn that. Don't do that because that's not the way of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Even though perhaps at that time, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's time, these forks and these knives, they existed because these things are ancient. Okay? It wasn't like Nabi at that time, it wasn't there. It was there. But Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam preferred eating with his own hands. However, the meat is not tender, right? Then you can use it only to cut it, not to take the slice and eat it with it. So that's one of the other. So it depends upon the situation. Usually, generally, it's not allowed. Okay? However, sometimes, depending upon the situation, it is allowed. The second thing that we understand, that it's not always the second thing that we understand from Ja'a Bilal. Bilal radiallahu ta'ala who comes and gives adhan. And then look what Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Taribat yada. May your hand becomes dusty. Now this is literally it means that may you become poor. Literally. But metaphorically it means that when you rebuke someone or you are doing islah of someone, then the Arabs, they use this word. Taribat yada. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? So why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is saying this to Bilal? Because here, and at that time, Mughira bin Shu'bah, he was newly converted to Islam, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is hosting him and teaching him, and all of a sudden, they started the meal and Bilal gave the adhan. The announcement is made. Because there was, ulama mentioned, because perhaps there was a lot of time left for salah and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam didn't like what Bilal did. He should have understood what is going on. We have enough time. He has a guest. They're about to eat and he gave adhan. So that's why once the adhan was given, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam left everything and went for salah. So that's why it is essential to understand it's not about the clock. It's not about the clock that we see, okay, salah is 7:30, and then even though Imam is outside making wudu, everyone is lined up and looking back. Where is he? Imam, what in actually, the clock is the Imam. When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when Bilal he would seek permission to give adhan usually. And he would look when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would arrive in the masjid, that's when he would give iqamah. Nowadays, people don't have adhan. And the people who are given the authority to give adhan and iqamah, first of all, their pronunciation is not right. Secondly, they don't know the masail. They don't know the issues related to iqamah and adhan, etc. Like these issues. So we need to understand, and also, one of the other issues that ulama mentioned, that mu'adhin should be adorned with the sunnah. Nowadays people coming, giving adhan without the beard and this and without the sunnah, and their pronunciation is just because they heard that on the day of resurrection, their necks will be long, right? There's virtues of adhan, but not for everyone. You have to learn adhan. You have to, just like imamat, just like you have to lead salah, for that, you have to learn. You have to learn Quran. You have to learn the Masail. Similarly, adhan is amongst the sha'airullah, amongst the symbols of Islam. And someone, non-Muslims coming and you don't even know how to give adhan, and subhanallah, sometimes people give adhan and you just want to run away. The way they give it. It's not the words, but the way they give it, because they don't know. So this is why everything that we do it according to the sunnah and learn. Learning is the key, inshallah. Anyhow. Also, ulama, says that perhaps Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said this because, look, وَكَانَ شَارِبُهُ قَدْ وَفَى, his mustache were long, and his mustache were covering his lips. Here, there's two probabilities. One is Mughira, and the other one is Bilal. Whose mustache? Some say Mughira, some say perhaps it's Bilal radiallahu ta'ala. That's what, because Prophet ﷺ told that sentence to Bilal. So perhaps that's the case that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam rebuked him. And it's not because coming sentence, look, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, I shall trim it for you by placing a toothpick, meaning miswak, or your upper lip, on your upper lip. Or he said that you must trim it by placing a miswak on your upper lip, meaning place it and cut it, meaning make sure it's not touching your lips. Because one, it's against the sunnah. Second, you're going to eat and drink. It's going to mix with the food and drink. That's also against the other. That's also against the other. So that's another thing. Now another thing is that ulama mentions, from this we understand that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is saying that cut it, trim it, not shave it. So from this we understand sunnah is not shaving the mustache. Sunnah is trimming the mustache. Because there's another hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, قُصُّوا أَسْبَالَكُمْ وَوَفِّرُوا لُحَاكُمْ, that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions that shorten the sides of the mustache and lengthen your beard. Now, sides mean here this. At the same time, you understand from Ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, there's a hadith that Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he would trim from here, and the sides, which are called sibalain, these sides, what do you call them? Bush? What do you? These sides. Any technical word for it? So these sides. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala had long hair. So the condition ulama mentions it's okay as long as they're not coming into your mouth, and they're not covering your lips, and they're not drowning and mixing with the food. That's okay. Because Umar radiallahu ta'ala did it. He perhaps did it because Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam saw it, never said anything. So that's okay. But this hadith, قُصُّوا أَسْبَالَكُمْ, trim the sides of it as well, okay, and leave your beard. And there's another hadith, the famous one, that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was told about the fire worshippers, that their way and method is to leave long mustache and become potato. And a better word, shave their beard. Shave their beard. This was the way of the fire worshipper. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, فَخَالِفُ, go against them. Leave the beard, trim the mustache. And trimming the mustache is amongst the sunnah of all the prophets, as it is mentioned in many ahadiths. Now, there is another narration which mentions that you should cut your nails and shave your pubic hair also. So, youngsters, especially, trimming the mustache, make sure you shave the pubic hair and trim your nails. When? It is mentioned in the hadith, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would do it every Friday. Every Friday. And there is another hadith that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would do it on Thursdays. So it depends. Whatever is convenient for you, you can do it either Thursday or Friday, but before Salatul Jumu'ah. So you gotta, from this we understand the principle and the usul that you gotta groom yourself for the day of Jumu'ah. And because you are a Muslim, and you are representative of Islam, you are da'i, caller to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Muslim, his appearance should be dignified. It's not like hair is going this way, and clothes and kapre, kharab, and someone comes up and he's giving da'wah to Islam, and look at his appearance, undignified. right? He's not going to be impressed. So your appearance have effect upon others. And you see the Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ, they loved fragrance, they loved, in fact, Nabi ﷺ said, Allahu Jameel yuhibbul jamal. Allah is beautiful and He loves beauty. So from these ahadith is, like, look, Imam Malik rahmatullah alayh, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, they have stories about fragrances, that how expensive fragrances that they had. In fact, there is a saying and statement which is attributed to Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that if you spend 1/3 of your wealth on the fragrances, that is not waste of money. So from this we understand that you got to take care of yourself without boasting, without showing off. Having the intention that because I'm representative of Islam, I'm da'i ila Allah and ila deen, ila Islam, and I have to be, dignified with this intention. Every move, every movement, inshallah, will be rewarded. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us ability to act upon these